Hey, what's up? My name is Michael Dean. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and we're going to start right here with the debut album by Prince. Let's go.
Like books and Black Lives, albums still matter.
All right, before we go any further, my name is Michael Dean. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button, the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you can get notified whenever we drop some new stuff. All right, so we're going to start things off talking about the debut album by Prince, For You. I have it over here. This guy right here. Can you see it? Is it clear to you? All right, so we're going to start talking about the debut album by Prince, released April 7th, 1978. Prince would have been all of 20 years old when this album was released. And there's a whole backstory in terms of like the making of the album and all that. This is not where we're going to do that. We're not going to like be super Prince snobs today. We're just giving a basic overview and really just my thoughts personally on this album and why you need to get this album, particularly if you are just getting into Prince and maybe you've heard about Prince, or who knows when this video comes out, you may see this video years later. Maybe there's some movie or something that is out about Prince and you're like, I want to jump into some of these albums. Well, that's why we're doing this. So this particular album is his first album. No, this is not Purple Rain. This is not Sign of the Times or any of these other classics that we will eventually get to. This is where it all started. And I know for a lot of old school fans such as myself, for me, let me speak for me. I wasn't into Prince when this album came out. I was super young at the time, and Prince was not hitting in the areas that I lived, and I just never heard of him. But what's fascinating to me, aside from the music that we'll talk about in a second, is that Warner Brothers, the label that he was signed to, would even put out an album by Prince at that time, because you got to remember, Prince had no hits at this time. He was not an internet sensation. There was no internet back then, right? There were no cell phones back then. There wasn't no social media. He wasn't even really hitting in the streets. Like, he did not have some underground songs out that created a buzz. He just had raw talent. You know, and even at that point, I wouldn't necessarily say it was raw, because he had spent all those years, his early years in life, honing that craft, getting to the point where he was. But what's fascinating about it is, you know, they would allow him to produce his own album and have complete creative control over that, and also have his publishing, which you just do not hear about. Really didn't hear about that back then. You certainly don't really hear about it now, unless you are proven, or unless they can get some other hot producer to come in and produce the tracks, or somebody to co-sign you. And you know what's interesting about this, you know, there's a great story out there that Maurice White, salute to the legend, and rest in peace, Maurice White of Earth, Wind & Fire, they wanted to have him come and produce Prince. And from what I understand, Maurice came and met and saw what Prince was doing in the studio and said, you know what? Youngblood got this. He don't need no help. Now you gotta imagine, now some of y'all may not really know what I'm saying when I say Maurice White, but go back and listen to Earth, Wind & Fire. They legends, and they had jams, and they was a big, big deal. And at that time, they was at the top. They was one of the top cats in black music. So for one of them dudes, Maurice, to come and say, you know what? Prince got this. This young brother here, he don't need no help. That's a big deal. It speaks to Prince's ability of production, his ability as a musician, where even, you know, like I said, a person like Maurice White would say, you know what? No need. So it's fascinating to me if you think about it in that context. And listening to the music, you know, this is not the Prince that he becomes later. Like, a lot of people will think of Purple Rain. You know, for me, I think Prince became the Prince that I know, like with the Dirty Mind album or something, where he really sort of locked into the image and the songs and, you know, all that kind of stuff. This is Prince, in my opinion, not necessarily knowing what is going to work. Like, he's sort of relying on, well, I know what's popping right now. And you can hear a little bit of some of the disco influence of the time. I think you hear, to me, it's an R&B record. You definitely can probably see where he might have been leaning a little bit on like some Stevie Wonder, who was the man at this time as well, and sort of going for that vibe and sort of feeling his way through it. And even with doing that, he still is Prince. And it's interesting because when I hear the album now, or even when I first heard the album, I probably first heard the album when Purple Rain had already just come out and was big, and it made me go back and listen to the older stuff. I was like, and I was fascinated because I can hear that it's him, but it is not what I thought it would be. He was more like, this was like this was a love record. This was like, you could play, like, to me now, I would play this, and this was like some mature, laid back. There's some fast stuff on here as well, but it was like, this is definitely some soul R&B music. And I think that's dope that's how he came in the game, sort of leaning on that. And of course, throughout his career, that was always a piece of him. To me, that is Prince. So this album is a must listen to, even if, like I said, you might listen to it now and be like, that sounds a little dated or something like that. All music sounds dated because all music is made at whatever time it is made, and most of it will reflect the time period that it comes from. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's one thing I think you got to get out of. But I think if you listen to it in the context of, wow, this is where he started. He was a young dude. He went into the studio and recorded it himself, painstakingly. I think he spent 3 times the budget that they were going to give him for this album. He went over budget because I think he was so like, this is my chance. I got to do this right. I got to prove that I'm the shit. I'm going to show these people that I can get down. You got to remember, Prince was coming out of Minneapolis. That was not popping at the time in black music, right? That was not the space, but that's where he was coming through. And I think, he was carrying that on his back to be like, yo, I'm about to show him how we get down out here. I'm going to show you what I do. And he came out with a very unique, dope project, just out of nowhere. Some of the big songs from this album would be Soft and Wet. Of course, that was the first single. That one charted, I think, number 12 on the R&B charts. And then, I don't remember what's the next single. I think Just As Long As We're Together. I may be saying that wrong. Let me correct myself.
A few moments later.
Yes, the second single was Just As Long As We're Together. Charted number 91 on the R&B charts. And I'm saying the R&B charts because that's where Prince hit first. Black folks that did get to hear it gravitated to it early. There's a lot of real old school Prince fans that are day ones that was like, they was rocking when they first heard Soft and Wet. They was all in. I wasn't one of them, but I've heard stories, you know what I'm saying? And we're not mad at that, because I think if those original fans didn't really get locked in, we would probably not have heard Prince. If they didn't make it do something first, then they probably would have pulled the plug. But they didn't, because he was dope and he did his thing. Some of the standout tracks to me, like my cuts off of this album, would be My Love Is Forever, Jam. And I would play some of the samples on here, but they would snatch this video down faster than you could say, "Ow!" So I'm not going to do that. But My Love Is Forever, that's one of my jams. I still jam that today in 2021. Crazy You, I think, is a classic Prince track. It's more of acoustic feel, but it's so soulful. And Prince does something that he's continued to do throughout his career. He'll make these songs and they'd be like so good, but they'd be short. And you'd be like, no, like, why is it over? And that's one of them, man. Crazy You is like, that could keep going. What else? I said Soft and Wet. I'm Yours. I'm Yours is another standout track, which I think for a lot of people, and I would say for myself, I'm Yours is one of those songs that sort of gives you a little glimpse. Is that even such a thing? A blink gives you a glimpse of what's coming. Like, okay, I got something for y'all ass, but I'm not really ready for it. But let me just put this on here and see if this kind of works, because to me it is everything. Like when you think of the funk and rock and of Prince, that song has the last song on the album, and it has it. The other thing I wanted to mention too is the way this album starts. It is a falsetto introduction. Prince is just him on vocals, a cappella. Headbuster. To me, that's him letting you know I'm coming. I'm not playing. And let me turn off all the music and let me give you these ill vocals and these harmonies. I don't think people really talk about it enough. To me, let me say this, and we're going to wrap this up. As much as Prince is heralded for his musicianship and his guitar and all that, the first album starts with the illest vocal performance. And as I was listening to this recently, I was like, man, this cat was young. He's been playing in bands all this time and jamming with Andre and all these cats back home. But when did he say, you know what? Let me get on these vocals. Let me come with some ill vocal work and let people know who they're dealing with. And the fact that the album starts with that, to me, is a headbuster unto itself. Because, yeah, we can always say, oh, he's a guitar hero and all that. No, he was on his, he's giving it up for all of the falsetto cats that came before and laid the groundwork. This young dude came in the game like, yo, let me lace these ill vocals. I think we don't talk about that enough. And the fact that that's what he starts the album with, and that's his debut, man, don't sleep. Don't sleep. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this. Go listen to this album. If you don't have it already, go buy it. Go get the CD. I know we're in 2021. Go add this to your Spotify or Tidal, whatever. Stream it. But it's an album you should listen to. It will put everything in context. Take your mind back to a young Prince. And this is how he came in the game, and everything you know about him. And you listen to this and you be like, yo, he was on some like, El DeBar, you know what I mean? Like I could see like El DeBar jumping on some of these tracks. He was on he would have been a smoothed out, cold R&B cat, So listen, I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit the like and subscribe. In the comments, tell me your thoughts on this album. To all my Prince snobs out there, salute to you. And yo, if you haven't already, I'll put the link down below. Join our Patreon. We have all of our podcasts up there and exclusives and all the good stuff. And it's a great way to support the site. But with that said, work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. I almost forgot. We're doing ratings on these albums. Now, we don't do the standard, it's 3 out of 5. We do our ratings based on Marlins. That's right, Marlins. I ain't got time to explain why we do that, but we give it on Marlins. So on a Marlins scale of 5, Prince's For You gets 4 Marlins for a debut album, 1978. Kids coming fresh out, 4 Marlins. So there you go. Work it like a job. We'll see you next time. I'll holler.